Every time Lent rolls around, I can't tell you how many times as a priest I've heard parishioners say to me, Father, Lent comes at just the right time every year. I just need time to stop, to slow down, to really focus and really pray, and to curb my appetites through fasting and put myself in greater contact and solidarity with those who have less. Where is Lent in the Bible? Well, the word Lent is not actually in the Bible. It's not even Hebrew or Greek or Latin. It's from the Old English word Lenten, which means springtime or the lengthening of days, which is, of course, coinciding with the spring season when the days begin to get a little bit longer, especially for those of us in parts of the world, for instance, that celebrate daylight savings. We begin to know this pretty well. The word comes from the Germanic Lenten, which is, of course, translated into the English, but its Latin roots is a word called Quadragesima, which is 40 days, literally. It's, in fact, the root for the word Quaresma in Spanish, which means essentially the same thing. So when people ask me, where is Lent in the Bible? It's not. It's not a biblical word per se, but it's been a practice that has been codified since the year 601. That's the first time we celebrated Ash Wednesday, which is a very well-known celebration throughout the world, the day when Catholics and Christians from all over the world go to church, usually to receive ashes on their forehead. It's really one of the most popular days of the church for people to go to Mass or to go to a Liturgy of the Word service to receive their ashes. It's a way of marking the season of purification, which is also demarcated by three foundational pillars: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. All three are related. All three are referred to by the Lord himself in Matthew chapter 6, where he refers to prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, not necessarily in the context of Lent, but as three spiritual practices that place us closer to God. Prayer requires very little introduction. Individuals have a great sense of what prayer is like. But fasting and almsgiving may not necessarily be so relatable. Now, on one level, fasting might be. There are a number of people who practice, for instance, intermittent fasting for health reasons. But this fasting is not the diet type of fasting, but rather it's the fasting whereby an individual gives up usually some type of food or drink, and they do so for a couple of spiritual reasons. One, it opens a bandwidth in the soul to realize that we are not infinite beings. We are finite beings, and we're sensate beings. And for those who fast, one of the first sensations that they experience through fasting is hunger. And it's, in a way, the most primordial of all the feelings that people experience in the body very quickly, especially when there's a lack of food. Sometimes we have to be careful not to become hangry. People who are angry because they're hungry, hence the conjunction hangry. So in fasting, it opens up space to realize that we're not infinite beings, that we have finitude. But the other part of fasting is that it opens us up for prayer, to realize that it is only God who really fulfills, it's only God who really satiates. But there's more to it, and this is how almsgiving comes in. In almsgiving, individuals make donations to the poor, sometimes financial, sometimes their talent or their time, their mere presence. But it's putting us in solidarity with persons who have less. For instance, take the money one might spend on coffee every week. Instead of getting that coffee and denying oneself that coffee, which of course helps us gain mastery over our appetites, we take that money, for instance, and make that as a donation to the poor. That would be a very sort of simple, very, very basic way of understanding how almsgiving works. But in any case, one can see the relationship between all three. Almsgiving puts us in solidarity with the poor. Fasting is an act of self-denial. And both are fed by and feed our lives of prayer, drawing closer to the Lord, who himself, by the way, fasted and prayed in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights, which is also in part why the season is precisely that long. That biblical number 40, of course, also shows up in other places in the scriptures, and most famously in the 40-year sojourn of the Jews through the desert as they left Egypt and made their way to the Holy Land. It's a journey that probably should have only taken 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if people were taking their time at most. But that year 40 was a season, an epoch in Jewish history of purification and preparation to enter into the Holy Land, into the Promised Land. Now, as I mentioned, Ash Wednesday, which is the first day of Lent, has been celebrated formally since the year 601. There is evidence that Ash Wednesday was celebrated in scattered parts of the early church, but it wasn't codified formally until the year 601. And this begins that real dramatic 40-day process for not only Catholics and Christians who are baptized and have been living a life in Christ, but really Lent was established primarily as a preparatory period for those who were waiting to receive the sacraments of baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist at the Easter Vigil. So the way that Lent works is that it starts with Ash Wednesday, and then it ends on what's called Spy Wednesday, which is Wednesday of Holy Week, which begins with Palm Sunday, Holy Monday, and Tuesday. Spy Wednesday is so called because that's the day ascribed to when Judas was spying on an opportunity to betray the Lord. Then there's Holy Thursday, where we celebrate the Mass of the Lord's Supper. Then there's Good Friday, and this is already with Holy Thursday, the beginning of the Sacred Triduum, 3 days. Holy Thursday, Good Friday, the only day of the year where there is no Mass celebrated in the Catholic Church. It's forbidden. And then the next time Mass is celebrated is the mother of all liturgies, the Easter Vigil. It's the basis for which all other Sunday celebrations in the Catholic world find its roots. And it's at that Easter Vigil where you have this dramatic admission into full communion or into baptism into the Catholic Church by those who have been going through the Order of Christian Initiation of Adults, which officially, formally begins on Ash Wednesday in terms of the Lenten preparation, but in reality sometimes starts several months, even in the fall, the previous year. Technically, OCIA is supposed to be a 2-year process, but in practice, in most parishes, it's about a 8 to 9 month process before people enter into the Catholic Church, starting courses or preparation somewhere after Labor Day, about beginning of September. This is a beautiful liturgy. It's the mother of all the liturgies in the Catholic Church. It's a liturgy that lasts in many places for 3 hours, which is rather long, you might agree. In any case, this is the culmination of the Lenten season. I should add that Catholics do take penance and preparation very seriously, but I'd also like to argue that we take festivity and celebration even more seriously. So, for instance, we will have about 30 days of Advent, followed by 40 days of the Christmas season. In this particular case, we have 40 days of Lent, followed by 50 full days of Easter celebration. So yes, we take our penance and our preparation seriously, but Catholics also take their celebration and their festivities just as seriously on the other end. In fact, a good Lenten experience is what makes the Easter season so joyful. Having gone through that 40 days, not of dieting, but fasting, of intensified prayer, and greater generosity to the poor, not just financially, but sometimes offering one's time and one's talent in order to be in solidarity with those who have less, really rounds out the totality of this incredibly important time of the Church's year. And every time Lent rolls around, I can't tell you how many times as a priest I've heard parishioners say to me, "Father, Lent comes at just the right time every year. I just need time to stop, to slow down, to really focus and really pray, and to curb my appetites through fasting and put myself in greater contact and solidarity with those who have less." So, is Lent in the Bible? The word? No. But the practice has incredibly strong biblical roots. And it's my hope that you celebrate a very purifying Lent in order that your Easter season may be even more joyful, not only this year, but always. If you like the content we provide on this channel, please feel free to like and subscribe and share. We always have other links to other content we produce here at St. Patrick's. And as always, thanks and God bless.